Hey guys, welcome back. Here is a long story of Mgtow, who was a former beta provider, who got betrayed and taken to the cleaners in his divorce. Let's listen.
I am going to share my story, because I think it is important to share things with other people, so they can learn from it, but also to remind people that their horrible life experience with women is not unique to them. I am now 46 years old, and was raised with an intact family that included mother, father, and a sister. Mom was stay-at-home, and dad worked at a blue-collar job. We were typical middle-class people, with all the day-to-day ups and downs of life, but no tragic issues. My parents always told me to get an education, and decide your own future. The importance of family and leadership was emphasized, and I wanted to do my parents proud, because they sacrificed for me. I developed into a type A, self-driven person. Fast forward and I went to college and law school. I became a lawyer and worked for a law firm, and soon opened up my own law practice. I took out loans to do this, and soon opened up my own law practice, before the age of 30. Sadly, I did not practice family law, did not know or hang out with anyone who was divorced. I always thought the issues of child support and divorce matched with trailers and domestic violence. I heard the marriage sucks jokes on TV, but always believed that my job was to be successful, take care of a family, and raise kids with a wife that would stay home and take care of them, all while I encouraged her to grow and do things for herself. I am a typical man in that I like a good-looking woman. I dated women who were fun, and or looked good, because that is what we do. You want your kids to be good-looking, and other men to look at your wife, and just know that this guy was successful at everything. Due to my own immaturity and desire to pay my school loans back, I was never going to get married in my 20s. The women were always looking for more, and a young guy with no money and student debt, despite a promising future, just couldn't keep up with the guys who were a little further along. Finding an attractive woman, with values, who wanted to build something with you seemed to be a pipe dream. Don't get me wrong, there were plenty of women who were quality, but without attraction to them, you aren't going to choose her as a wife. Let me also say that I consider myself humble and thankful for everything I have, and my definition of attractive isn't off the charts realistic, but that being said, a woman must inspire on some level. Fast forward and the business grows, I pay back my loans, but here I am age 35, no wife, no kids, and I want to be a family man. Long story short, I start dating a woman who is my age, from a family unit like mine, off the charts attractive, and wants to be a mom. After 6 months of dating, I move her into my home. At the time I met her, I had been dating women who were just horrible self-centered people. They cared about no one but themselves. It was all about, what can you do for me? The successful strong women that I preferred were all into their careers and did not want kids until they were 40, and they realized it was too late. I didn't want that. After moving the woman into my house, we were married soon after. She got pregnant the first month, and over the next 2.5 years we had 2 daughters. After the last child she refused more kids. She had everything given to her, and was a stay-at-home mom. While the sex wasn't great, it wasn't a huge issue. This is when the change began. She refused to clean the house, spent her evenings at the gym, while I gladly watched the girls, and the sex stopped. Within 4 years of marriage, she literally didn't come to bed at night, and we were living separate lives. I would work all day, I never heard from her, and when I came home, we would eat, but within 5 minutes of sitting down, she would finish, get up with the kids, bathed them and put them to bed, and she was then in front of her laptop until 2 a.m. at night. Any inquiries about what she was doing was met with disdain and me being told it was her way to relax. Once this scenario began after 4 years of marriage, I was smart enough to know something wasn't right, but here I was a working guy, with a stay-at-home wife and 2 young daughters. I talked to lawyers about divorce, and it became clear that getting equal custody of my kids was not likely, because the judges in my jurisdiction didn't believe in equal custody when the kids were young, and the mom was stay-at-home. I am sure my wife knew this, and she began to slowly try to isolate me from my kids. I knew, if I wanted to have an equal opportunity to raise my girls, I had to stay in the home for a while, bond with them, and see what could happen. The last thing I wanted was a divorce, but I was not basically living with someone who wouldn't talk to me, refused sex, and ran up the credit card every month, while I saved every dime I made. Over time it got worse, and I wonder why my wife would be up until 2 a.m. every night on a computer and not be able to keep even a slightly clean house. My personal stuff began to be destroyed, and the disrespect was off the charts. I am not some asshole who expects my wife to be this perfect person and bow down to me, but when I am out earning, so she can be a stay-at-home mom, you should communicate, have sex on occasion, and keep the house clean. It was even more frustrating, as everything in the home was mine, because I owned and decorated it before she moved in. Finally, after 8 years in, the last 4 being barely roommates with all the bills paid by me, I told her I wanted a divorce. I did this after first agreeing to counseling. It was horrible and I quit after 2 sessions, as it was Hate the Man 101. Men don't ever go to counseling, because if you do, it's because your marriage is already shot, and that just reminds you of it, while some self-righteous person slowly removes you from your wallet. And just seeing her blame me for all the lack of communication. This is where I made mistakes, but also got lucky, which helped me get equal custody of my kids. Once I told her I wanted a divorce, she said we weren't ready yet, and didn't want one, but I held firm and told her how I felt. We now had to decide who would move, and who would stay in the home. Remember, this is a home I had before I met her, that I took care of, and then watched her destroy it once she moved in. We both lawyered up, and the demands from her lawyer were insane. Tons of child and spousal support, with me being allowed to see my girls 2 overnights per month. I was livid, as I was a good dad, an earner, and she had nothing on me regarding violence, drinking, or financial mismanagement. The money saved was huge. Needless to say, this caused huge tension. I was now up to speed on divorce laws, and it seemed I stood to lose everything I worked for, plus have to pay her to sit on her ass and rarely see my kids. She knew it as well, and slowly began to isolate me from my girls, and made it clear I would see them rarely, if at all. I soon realized that I needed to leave the home. She knew, if I stayed, the assets were continuing to increase, and she could spend freely and live the leisure life, while my anger continued to grow. I learned, if she made it to 10 years marriage, she would get my Social Security, once I dropped dead from stress and anger at age 50. This is where I was headed, due to my high-stress job, and anger at wife over the deception she was making me live day to day. This is where it gets better. While we stayed in the home not speaking, but clearly going to divorce, her behavior got even more bizarre. She started pushing my buttons, trying to provoke anger and violence. We had never argued or yelled during our time married. Long story short, one morning I walked into the kitchen and tripped over a mess that our fancy dining room had become because she used it to stack stuff like a hoarder. As I picked myself up off the ground, I opened a tiny basket, and I found a handheld recording device. It turns out, she had been taping our conversations and interactions in the home for months, trying to provoke me into violence, to get me out of my own home. Once the realization of this betrayal sunk in, I started making plans to leave the home before I did get violent, and she destroyed or stole more of my personal stuff. Once I told her I wanted a divorce, lots of my personal stuff started disappearing. It wasn't overly valuable stuff, but it was personal to me. I soon realized I had no pictures of my kids. While I was at work, the kids and mom went on playdates, and she had pictures of the kids since birth. I found 2 flash drives on the table near her laptop, and took them one evening, while she was at the gym, and thinking they were pictures I went to copy them. I soon found out what she was likely doing late at night and all day while I was at work earning. The flash drive did not contain pictures, but instead massive volumes of sex writings, where Harry Potter characters were having graphic sex with each other, and characters made up by my wife, some named after our 2 daughters. I was heartbroken. Instead of being a wife, she spent her days and nights writing porn fantasies with Hogwarts and other freaky stuff. The flash drives contain 10,000 pages of this crap writing, written the last 2 years of our marriage. I am sure there was more, but this was all I found. I did not tell her I found her recording device or porn drives, but she knew, and it was fun watching her panic in the house, wondering where they were. Here was this perfect soccer mom, who showed no interest in sex with me, wondering what I knew about her secrets. I soon moved out without telling her. I had buddies, and a moving truck show up at the house one morning, to move out my stuff I had before I met her from my own house. She called the sheriff, and they allowed her to decide what I left with. Think about the emotional damage of leaving a home you owned before you met her, and having a local yokel tell you, you can have your pre-marriage property. Total nightmare. People ask, why do you leave your own home? If you are successful and build up assets, you are going to lose it. So, I wanted to give up the home, and get a fresh start. I was not abandoning my family, as I bought another house, soon after leaving, right around the corner, in prep for the custody battle. Over the next year, I was dictated to when I could see my girls, until we could get a court date for custody. The emotional trauma was off the charts, as I continued to have to work, while she didn't work, and did all she could to empty the bank accounts before I left. Despite having volumes of porn written by this perfect woman, my own lawyer told me I wasn't likely to get equal custody of my girls, and every other weekend was the likely result, 4 days a month as not being an equal parent. Wife forced me to trial and thousands of dollars spent. I didn't behave perfect in court, as I watched her lawyers argue I shouldn't have equal custody, because I was hardworking and successful. My ex at age 40 was middle-aged, and couldn't work according to them. She had a 4-year college degree, a job when I met her, that she quit soon after meeting me. If I had written all that porn with my kids' names in it, I would have gotten supervised visits. The double standard in family court is insane, and the lawyers were shocked that I got equal custody. In my mind, the wife was lucky to get equal custody. The judge just couldn't get past the porn with her own kids' names in it. To summarize the divorce, it was a different story. I got taken to the cleaners, and in addition to losing tons of assets, I have to pay her a ton a month in spousal support and child support. She sits in a paid-for home with no car payment, and does not work. My job has gotten harder and less profitable, and I am basically a slave barely paying my own bills, while she tries to emotionally destroy her own girls, with counseling sessions and ADD testing. The bottom line is a woman can do anything she wants once you marry her, and if you don't want to take it, you pay her for the privilege of leaving. That was 3 years ago, and while I have a healthy relationship with my kids, the court system is set up to isolate men from their kids and money. I got lucky to find one of the wife's habits, but I didn't find it all, and she was probably cheating as well, as I watched her guard her pocketbook and phone with her life before I left. I do not speak to my ex, and will not since I left. Why would any man want to put themselves in a situation where even after you divorce, you are dealing with such crap on a day-to-day basis, while you struggle financially? If a man does not have assets, he's at an even worse disadvantage to fight. This is where the Mgtow issue is tough. Most men my age are of a generation where people married and had kids. Yes, there was lots of divorce, but even back then, it was rare compared to now. It's easy for me to preach, as I am blessed with 2 kids, but if you are a young guy, you have a real dilemma. I will never remarry, and women now only really have value for sex. I have never hired a hooker, but that is basically what women have become. Hookers. You pay them money, and you might get sex. You treat them nice, and they will manipulate you emotionally. Who needs that? If she cannot give you children, why even talk to her? If she can, and you want them, you have a real tough time ahead. If you marry her, and she does not give them to you, at what point do you leave, or move on to minimize the financial hit? If you do get them, at what point is it worth having kids, when she will keep them from you and destroy you financially at all turns? This is the modern-day American woman. Self-absorbed and self-entitled, with the full backing of our legal system, to do what she wants, even if you do everything a man should do, when it comes to working and providing for a family. Because of my belief system given to me by my parents, it took courage to leave a marriage. How bad does it have to be, to leave someone when you have young children, and don't even have a replacement woman? I left to be alone, and it is better than staying where I was in a dead stagnant life. You can have all the money in the world, but if you are being emotionally abused and disrespected, on top of being lied to, why stay and be miserable? You can line your coffin with $1,000 bills if you want. I am mentally healthier now than I ever was. I go places, and I do things, and I don't answer to a woman. I date on my terms and don't feel slightly bad if I stop talking to a woman soon after I have sex with them. I don't seem to lack women, and they seem to be everywhere, even if they aren't all gorgeous. I am not getting any younger or better looking. My house is clean and decorated the way I like, and I don't catch crap for it. Where this is really important is how you need to be emotionally strong as you age. It wasn't easy being married 8 years, too bad for her she didn't make it 10, and then divorcing in my mid-40s, but I see these harpies stick around as long as they can. Divorce a man when he has been married 20 years, on the wrong side of 50, and left broke or stuck with a lifetime of alimony, after he has spent his life paying to raise his kids. These women are heartless, and use you when you are emotionally vulnerable. If you allow yourself to get locked into a marriage, and don't get the right advice, you end up destroyed before you get to enjoy any part of your life. If you want kids, have them young, or flat out tell the woman you won't have them in a marriage relationship. I still wrestle with that, as I was raised to believe in family, yet I watched my dad die of cancer after being married 40 years, getting to enjoy nothing, and knowing he stayed because he was from a generation that needed a woman to take care of them. Once you sort out the kids or no kids issue for yourself, hopefully at a young age when you are broke, Mgtow is the best way to be for a happy, healthy, full life. The stories I read on here break my heart, and I am mad at myself for failing to be mature enough to get married and have kids young, but in many ways thankful I did that. Women are horrible creatures, and know exactly what they are doing. They kill you, without you even knowing it. At least a man who wants to kill me will come right at me, and be honest with his intentions. I am done playing a non-winnable game. I will be stuck with child support for a few more years, but my daughters are going to come live with me full-time soon, as I am teaching them what their mother is doing to them. I hope they will be able to have families of their own, but for that to happen, they need to treat a man well, as the good ones will be Mgtow, as they get educated at a younger age. My fear for my daughters is, they will have kids with a bad dad outside of marriage, and I may have not set a good example by leaving, but I fought for them and now must fight for me. I wish everyone the best, and know that there are men out there who share your views, and that we live in a system that is anti-man, anti-family, and filled with feminists who offer nothing but hate. Until we learn to stand up, by putting ourselves first, it's only going to get worse.
He put everything clear. All the nice guys will be Mgtow. He digested the red pill as soon as he found that his wife wanted him to have a miserable life while keeping him on the hook for money. This is what happens if you choose to have a blue-pilled life. Be careful, be safe out there. What better way to save a brother than sharing your story? Send your stories to redpill.story@gmail.com. Contribute at patreon.com/redpill.story. Contribute directly through PayPal at redpill.story@gmail.com. If you like to hear more of these experiences, comment, rate and subscribe. Don't forget to bang the bell. You can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/storyredpill. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/storyredpill. To avoid attacks from social justice warriors, follow me on gab.ai at gab.ai/storyredpill. Cheers. See you tomorrow.